Hello, everyone. My name is Shima Robinson, aka Dwennimmem, and I'm the feature poet for tonight, accompanied by the great damn magpies. I just wanted to let y'all know that we're really happy that you've come to the show to see the Bellow Project, which is based on my latest book, Bellow. This special night is specifically very special to me because not only am I a student here at U of A, my family has a legacy of a study here. So that's important to me. And I'm really pleased to be sharing some of the fruits of my labor as the 10th Edmonton Poet Laureate with all of you tonight. And I think I want to just preface the performance with a little way into it, which is it's about my experience of Edmonton specifically. It's about my experience of growing here, learning here, being here, my subjectivity here, how it has impacted me to live in Amsquatchie-Waskagan, aka Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and how it informs my citizenship, my identity, my sense of belonging, and my sense of community. So yeah, we're gonna launch into this, and I hope you are brought to deep thought and great contemplation by this work. Thank you for coming. We're gonna start right away. I am the only witness to my fear. A lonely note sung from my cavernous mouth as low light plays on the edges of my ravenous doubts that swallow me in parts. I bleed and breathe in fits and starts, knowing that for me there is no leaving, neither from my love for the lay of the valley land, nor the raging anchorage that has sunk me neck deep in the bog of a reckoning. Welcome to the scene, my long-awaited queen. Quote, the jesters that pester between the hectoring slants of the relief to which I cling. I rule hearts, spit diamonds, and sport a lone bone ring. Carry clubs, spades, and old yellowed maps for planned defense and land remade and the glory of unplanned attacks. I am a matriarch of a rolling history that lost the record of my future tasks, along with the logic of my long-lost ways. A history arisen between the dawn and dusk of enduring sun-soaked days. Redacted by the blinding pain in my flashback past. A chronicled remembrance of the warrior friends that I've sought, slain, and taught to laugh. So I pursue the freedom of movement through my hardy physique, a fascinating trickster math with calculating embrace. In the full futility of mimicry, our voices emerge from my throat in tones meant to bewitch you with civility, utterances that glance off handsome truth, a bold reminder of the emergent itch. For every honest quote, I never fully spoke, as my dark lungs bloat and twitch. I wheeze realizations of my only hope on a seasonal loop that breaks under the weight and gait of my inconstant lope. I keep on keeping on, rolling deep in this northern place, with secret confidants witnessing my hard-won fate. We are friends when we join in a warm welcome, coping just to cope. In the ebb and flow of bedlam, embodying tropes and tempting full-bodied taunts with renewal's wonder at the wintry fog that descends upon my toiling shoulders, sweat glowing as I smolder under a cape of vapor gray, with cold assurances of fulfilled fantasies of finally fitting snugly in molds and clothes made for those ranks frustratingly far above me. I remake my face so as not to look slovenly, placing the tiny craters in careful order of their arrival, a counting game that chronicles the idle sting of violence that pits the smoothness of my tongue against memories of ill-timed silence cast back into black ink wells of a history that can only be traveled by the pen. Barely visible pinpricks of conversational havoc. I boast lacerations from hard-bit gravel that remind me to travel light and be driven by gravity, a tidal force that descends upon me in waves of memories of bygone friends held dear in bygone days, whom I've left to bear witness to newer paths astray. Commanded by the indifferent moon, I recall living in reclusion, lit by a lunar gloom, when my younger form scrapped for her survival. My dance is a forgotten tribal bending that may have never been performed for a rapt audience, though it has been done to death, adorned by the seething of my own baleful, bated breath, to evoke the rest of spirit and the solace of my soul. I bound for my longevity, to avoid the death tolls of sinkhole human feelings and the belief in honest demons, living behind the screen of a comedy in which the metal of bright, dark girls is in full-blown hunting season, uncommonly found screaming, since I am barely breathing. I am flummoxed and reeling, teeming with warring humors, rivaling my innards churn as I begin to decipher rumors that I've eavesdropped from amorphous sources whose confidences burn with expectations of a black magic woman. The clap and cry of old crows, whisper wrenching torments to my bludgeoning heart. We're on chart for a deadly landing, on course for a remorseless victory. Though the static has been strangely soothing amid the changeling trickery that my naked mind can't fathom beyond subjugation and slander, tragic manic incantations, and the need to be absolved. I was made to be patient, reborn in every pause. I feel searing heat in my moments of defeat, at the wringing hands and desperate will of friends who claim to love me still, as they strike me like flint, begging for a lick of searing wit. They urge me into blaze, blowing embers of my rage, as I grow hot with animosity, roaring into full-fledged flame. I'm reclaiming the dry desolation of a stopped throat, full of the suffocating throb of dumb woe that arose from dealing in false stories, to placate menacing caresses designed to lull with softening redress. I am a lone stone's throw from recovering the dignity of my duress. It spreads like ripples down a brown water river as I open the tender place in my chest to taunt the feverish violence offered, to confirm my knowledge of self. My ferocious voice bellows on the gusts of cooling southward wind, twisting and brawling with my natural timber as it pushes my tongue inward, vibrating from a calculated distance, spinning songs with creative kindred, a new lyric filled with dissonance, laying down my killing instincts, recoiling from the limits I've set, with my own yearning vision that has been fixed on the gray ground, in search of the swaddling sight and sound of comfort. In the dulcet rush and sweep of curling fall and orange, red and green autumn leaves. Their tumult a likeness of care and creed so far from my conception, pride brimming at the rearing of callous affronts. As I raise my eyes to the horizon in moments of asylum, toward the sky spilling light in beams so bright that I can find the ceiling of blue ecstasy in the lengthy days of midsummer, in the appearance of a dusk's red sun, in the assurance of another dawn, braided into my life of plunder, spent grinning with a mouthful of tears, as I bribe the goodwill and confidence from the wretched toll of years. A dead ringer for the lost one I've been in the torrid sleep of guilt, grasping at the dimming thrill of a never-ending discovery. Convenient accounts mollify the urgency to heal amid the doubts I conceal within winks. For the witness I've borne to carnage, and the stink of falsehoods garnered, to give rights to my heft in a delicate balance barely kept. Filled with the older lore I know from songs and stories told of evening time and balanceo and the common parlance and the sonorous souls of brazen women of my lineage who stand under menace, poised just so. A far-flung village of kindred that rise from water and rock. We lay down the footholds for safe passage in our perilous progression of the plot. Precious pilgrimage, spent breath of brilliance, swelling with welling memories in the magnitude of patient, pressurized silence. We keep our pulses pressed as evidence of the generations of violence that could not break our timing. Traders sent me to pretty petty tribes, latent and disguised in stolen gravitas. I rise plaintive, though in time I shine with vociferous gifts and a full belly laugh, reaping the pleasure and pain sown of such tremulous dewdrop wishes clenched for restoration at midday reckonings, willed into existence by the conciseness of my every uttered sentence, sheltering soft and mottled niceness, quelling the mislaid kindness that begs for life and stays the knives turned inward from the hollows of my own accusatory mind that mocks the vast dispersal of my people, of my kind. I'm draped in the opaque navy blue of duty, scraped clean by the toughness of my own scrutiny, beginning again to gleam in the newness of a justified mutiny against collusion with sworn enemies, against the falsehoods that had defended me. Birthed from the earth's core, my resolve is the source of plenty. The remorse, a long-lost cause, as I revel in the remedy, encased in the same blood memory that brings these stories to the fore, with the flow of joined energies from every ancient teaching that was ever fully taught. Games galore in the flame I explore, though I live for the water and the rock. I am awash with bolts of liquid soft silk sentiment that slip into my voice as threads of melodical logic. My mouth full of colors, my doubts bright and caustic. I once gifted my curling locks with hostile lie at an age when my pain was still a tender impostor. I pried revile open to fill with corrective paste. Brought my comfort to a full and flourishing stop. I hastily revered my newfound wound, a face of cruelty beneath the hard edge of schoolgirl scrutiny. Ill-gotten gains secured my name on coveted rosters. I played all the games for the stinging burrs and bragging rights. I tried to straighten good intention into my bleeding barrel embrace, to enfold my good dark dear in tears for her mistakes, to unbend in the direction of my newest fate. I have since kissed my grudge double accomplice in a hard-fought farewell, meant to displace the blame for the reformation of my oldest son's spell. Flung into the vainglorious struggle, I had chased with grins for the grind of dissociation out of the body I had fought with out of hand. I've thrown a Hail Mary last stand as a verse bellowed into darkened, empty inkwells for only one scribe to show, for Dwennimmem to grant a tell. I beseech that unknown well of wisdom for a percussive beat, for each beating I have sustained in suffering, for the shivering seedling that I had once been, shining in the umbrage, seeing through the smoke, taking moments of atonement with golden folks, master crafting an imagined opus. Semi-precious chef-d'oeuvre, buried in sun-rich soil, glinting turquoise, in the thrall of ram horn shifting weights within the toil, while screaming challenge into glaring gates of turmoil. That opening boasted burgeoning fertile purpose and practiced mastered poise, tempting my hostile reflections to bring the God-forsaken noise, and eventually buoy me up on a boisterous tirade, hewn of boom, an everlasting joy of a selective strand of memory that keeps me placed and foiled by past versions of my good-gotten grin. In the throes of what was known as childish sin, united under lenient deities that I've always found within. Blasphemous from the beginning of my time, I've since been sliced to the very same ribbons which adorn and mark me sublime, primed for rollicking pink hostility, imploring my feverish hustle with normal niceties that mollify my oracle crises, falling tragically far from warm pedestals placed so near and high above me. I could only reach desperately from their forlorn pinnacle confinement to touch the coveted hem of the violet horizon and hold it in my moistened, well-lit eyes, brimming with provisions of a slow, empathic flow, born of openness to fluttering promises and well-spat lies, of tyrants who will always crow harshly for the binding of permanent ties and tremulous lusts. I have fallen so resolutely, relishing the plummet, cherishing the powder, brown dust. I miss my good-gotten days when trust was more than enough. I need a beat for repeating ever rained on me, while seething terror in the error of my ways. I have returned to my most distracting memories of crimson dreams ablaze, shining like ruby rubble, strewn about the cerebral space. That I have kept as homely hovel, as my companion place, adorned with doors that stood agape, welcoming portals to the dour remorselessness of the only space I could pass through safely, transcending the abyss of anonymity, but only as stealthily paced, discerning the has-been travelers from the known and named. I've been beating pavement with torn soles of my bloody, blistering feet, leaving trails of red blame. Completed the trials and lessons framed by my hardened hometown streets in order to earn an honorable name that would entitle me to the coveted beating that bears the brunt of blame. I've committed commitments to the game of asylum, run far to find my guile and charm. I stood confounded in my numbing attempts to do absolutely no harm. I need beats for the bleeding hearts of my blood siblings, my cold, hard-won winnings, my bold charcoal inscriptions afforded me by my tutelage, wrestled from the halls of high privilege. So me and mine draw candid lines in undisturbed shores, hugged by the memory of rushing water, over shoal-kissed sands on which we walk alone, on beach fronts at the edges of the earth, ascend up to the gorgeous unfurl of creation's steady gaze, grazing my cheeks with touches of wisdom that come to bear upon me as I wake, as I recall what I was worth, trapped in nebular despair, turning away from late greatness. I hail a laudable laughing mistress that I have never freely fought with, though I refuse to meld minds with her insistent silken softness. I'm learning to let her breath into my ear every so often. Her water-falling voice is a roar describing the ram horn as both a careful kindness and a growing wrath, good gotten only in the moments when I can honestly stand to laugh. Bring me a welcome as offering, lit with shimmering difference, to thwart the dull indifference of the daily gathering throng. As each assembly bell tolls, award me adolescent accord, with your long-nursed dissonance, upbraid me with applause for my lapses into Godhead. To speed the laud of this golden grin embedded in my calloused, homegrown hot head. Dwennimmem has my psyche wrapped as a symbol of ancient progress, timeless process, heat seeking amid the time-tested hopelessness of loneliness. I ascend in patterns of build and bust, like swells pressing against the inevitable rise of high tides that collude with friction sharpened rocks, ushering in the brutal hideaway dusk. I think of the seas that envelops the armored feet of those who sieged and starved my forebears, caught in crosshairs, trapped in the troubled fables of slavers, the landed invaders, those so-called saintly sailors, of which I know far too much, interrupted the rhythm in my childish cadence, spittle on my lips as I clutch my mouth to muster gumption enough within doubt to rewrite my whole inheritance with a gripe that does not bear mentioning. Incredulity for the content that I scribe and spit in broader, bolder scripts than the wisps that led me astray in bygone days. Weeping welts in my bottled mind, triggered by familiar quips that rose from blows dealt time and again to dull my keen will, have kept me running, mostly blind and bent from my own rollicking kind, catching the glint from the satisfied smile of those I beguiled poetically. Bloating openly as I rub the length of my body against the harshly billowing wind and stumble into trust, shedding well-traveled skin, recoiling to strike all but blood and softly chosen kin, with razor observations dipped in bubbling wit that withstand the attacks embedded in the history of bodies bodied once again in silent, violent districts, claimed by gang conquests and victories, that breed a robust creed of coral brittle dictates, sharp insinuations of terribly blazing threats that'll rip you to shreds. In Michener Park broods about the hoods of Old Mill Woods. I tip my hat to the South Central meddlers who could always do better than good. Improved by the projects I've pursued as a painful downtown object much maligned, imbued with dwindling prospects of painfully promised logic, proven by the polish I shone with, a new gleam in the newness of approvals gained. My long-lived fame, allied with the home team's smoke, sending up prayers beneath the yoke of the lost and leaving, they brought me offerings in the form of the holistic wonder of dreams, my vision bright and beaming, dalliance in the gangsta lead that I borrowed, hallowed expressions of the so-called hollow, their guilt threads pull through me, a fashionable draw on the motto, tied to my ancestors' ilk, stronger than silk, spun more delicately than my infant breath. I claim my space in this sacred place for want of open rest, knowing I am not at origin, though I might be at my best, making a home adrift amid the rifts between good hosts and long-time guests. Drafts blow the time in as the nights plod on, slowing in the glowering light. Soft from the guttering flame at midday, I shudder and stretch, sinking my senses deeper into depth. Standing in the season's ebb, the flower that lost its head. My fight with sputtering refrains gives light to the words I've not yet said. Budding brilliance will be birthed as a child of mind in a next life that beats on the crown of her dread-bedecked head. Bound in reassurance, her stout hands pound pleasure into thick locks as she calls me forward, drawing out the note, sitting kissing the hot air, riddled with the breath of calm and contemptuous hiss, toiling up her resolute neck in fits, as we warn the unconquered of the coming dawn, and we warn the pigs of the waiting spits. So certain we are in our fertile furrows, upon which we sit, painted shades of black. We call attention to the dust settling on our bent siblings' backs, rather than command them to stand, to grant that freedom is what we dearly lack. Nestled here in a vestibule of injury. Test to create as killing we. Yet we dance for the creator's sense of balance, the harmony of its plans, creating rhythm and step that unmake the mystery of the decision to puncture our feet in the bramble and thorn, battling the city and the country's scorn, bleeding our courses charted in the blood of a martyr, whose purpling hearts seize on battlefields as they breathe their last. Yet we mourn for the passing of the timeless task, coursing through the blood of a one-day child of mind, running boisterously past me toward barren front lines to find trailing iridescent ribbons, flashing the colored tints of dreams of a stronger, sharper vision than the one that has us trapped in the violence of our past screams. A spray of declarative color clasped firmly in her fists that rub streams of tears into round cheeks, blessing the wound by calming, strengthening, and softening the bleak vision of our image, reversing the swoon-worthy curdling cries that traverse the moonlit skies with honest, supple bliss behind deepened, darkened eyes, telling the room to wince less audibly. From blast assist to sunk 6 feet, time is an enduring anomaly, waiting in the will of wisdoms to fatally strike down kingdoms, consumed by the ravening glut of mastery over wind song. We are none of us long for this tune and trill. We are none of us born to see the end of our wills. I am a reaper of strength, boasting Anansi-tested skills, and my one-day echoed thanks will drill the laughter from the groan of hereafter. lavender for the baby, guffawing from her breadfruit belly, at futile terror captured in flashbulb brilliant stills. Her protection is my billowing wrath. She, the gifted, swaddled and uplifted, loosening the brooch that carved the notch into my dropped shoulders, pressed down, reaping fine black powder round salvation as a new, noble generation of warriors. It was, though bloody royal, who sent the officers of the seat to ride us down and split our families from their trees. Those blue sanguine, who laid us low in row upon row of anguished soul, counted our severed heads, held under the guise of loyalty, bowed at the behest of the crown, flown into our homes in the fell form of overbold bullets spit to turn the bones of my people to cracked sediment and stone. Even as we worked our straight backs into the curved furrows of the land, plodded slow, stood merciless against our own whipping syllables that glanced off neighboring shoulders, braced to bear the weight of brazen whispers, tended by elders, ghosts in the embers of Africa, ablaze, dismembered, disfigured, dismayed, yet close. Emboldened by that laborer's language, syllables that survived the awkward coming out of the word laborish from my pride-open mouth that had wrapped itself around that Jamaican term for local tongues, the sum of a lost record that clung to the life force found in the hearts and shouts of the intrepid one people. My pen began the end of my longest known drought as I inked the crooked shadow of the one steeple. I've rested, swallowed, and bested the pointed doubt that severed the hallowed heads of my ancient family from the deeply held meaning of my eventual dowry, altering the currency from the pound to our freedom's challenge of sickly abhorrent assumptions they brought us each time they claimed to have bought us as though we had never deserved a home. The jewels they kept as reminders of the richness of our lands became emblematic of the cold clench of Elizabethan hand, burdened by the turning of our skulls and clammy Shakespearean palms for fabricated concern, withholding alms so affably calm in the still of the guilt. While our matriarchal warlord, Nanny of the Maroons, had us heated in the pursuit, up steep slopes, past deadly sinkholes, into impassable lands, she ran a freedom circuit into the rock and grit of the cockpit country. Dangerous effrontery, fastest known to woman, tracking reckless curses into the soot of destroyed slave holdings, merciless on foot, glowing. So we still bolt for the glory and scream, fire! Into the dim resting threat of royal prospects. We climb to the freedom of vantage bestowed by empire, holding down our own tongues, speaking the healing names of our long-lost children, progeny of the fury of that falsehood of flood, that voyage over oceans that still holds spirits of our heroes in the throes of righteousness, awash in a legacy of blood. There is a place in my heart that has been too painful to mention. A known rule from home. It will moan to me as I speak to you in tones. On the edge of the threshold where the water is cursed, doors closed on the heads of the damned near immersed. In the swelter of the scene of the blister unburst, the chattel of fell design concealed glints of sunburst. Thrust their bodies into the abandon of would-be truths denied, abused, discarded, and decried, bound in the bloodthirsty roiling of a continental lie, saw their ancestors fly into the storm of their own shuttering eyes, concealing the heat of ore. Enraged red smolder groaning in its warp. They kept the calm of resign and the passion of rebellion, giving nuclei to atomic creations, coaxing bone memory from Atlantic skeletons, the seat of the souls of nations, risen in the form of children born only to die, living on in a brandished, blanched lie. We took on the heat of the cauldron of sear and hiss. We drink deeply now down to our bones, and by the dint in our wrists turn the gestures of livelihood into signs of a stylishness, smiling with teeth made of enamel formed in the molten armor of our ancestors' marrow, whose captive entanglement was chained to the vile sonorous lie of a low origin in the burr brambles of mere moment upon moment upon moment upon moment, until it became time for us to realize that we are the stolen who found a home within open stride, in the rise of distant tides that call our eyes to dizzying rounds, that allow the scope and breadth for the drumming up of a calculated guess at what made that message we acknowledge with that fondness on our lips, and caution in our fingertips. Each time another rebel bleeds hello, smiling through reddened teeth to keep hell beneath us, questioning its realness for the dignity of lurid, uttered curses, administered as curatives, that we pulled from the sticks we picked out of the onslaught to remind us of the customs that made us save the world we've wrought under the tutelage of our mother's uterine nurture. Her voice is reverberating through the fluid purpose turned to wind as we raise our blessed heads to the din of industry and the sordid contortions of our love of land. Her molten tones that consume all of our bronzed arrogance and smelted our iron metal to be folded into the alchemy of our older luster that cloaks our newer custom. Until we cluster our complaints at the footsteps of our elders, and we've wept for their remembrance, for we've grown to know what we've been told to name as golden, the solstice, the passage of seasons, and the landing of our feet from RE drifts into the fume of cooling pits that keep charcoal in the springtime and fire in the winter. Heat flung of a hearthstone that spits, so we can bask in their back-raised, brazen, protective rage, chasing the minions of the masters of none over the cliffs of our gods, who eschew the words some of us now use for them, and reduce our slavering enemies to lovable earth, petrified in its birth. Nurtured by our thirst, we seek water, and curse what errs in our hearts for calling the cold, stainless tap of that metronome of lack our benefactor, drinking deeply of disaster, to decipher its craft and unmake its math, even as it leaves us running over broken land, tongues uncracked. My proud heaving chest, my eyes, my yes man behest, less agreements than imperative pressure, my sachet in salute to the way my mother still walks, defiantly past the tyrant screams, built into the dreams of every immigrant queen, of every common castle, built with uncommon hustle, lunging toward the affront of danger with billow and blaze that burn lasting warning into her children, who gather and rally to back down disaster at the sound of her brave, deepening laughter that buried Babel to the rafters. Time and time again built this friend. So for my first friend, so I'll follow in her footsteps and track those of our people further back than the unholy steeple and the blasphemous flail. I'm a child of a war, a lover of raw strength, worked into supple sound. The voices in the round that are guided by stars and ruled only by a broken compass, that lost the wail of the ocean's want, that had crusted its foam and froth over the wrath of our brutal crossing, that cannot softly sing another echo into the ears of the desperate, bent over their own withdrawn affluence, starved for the sound of landing passage, that can summon marrow to mourn in the birth of new words for known, that could have us all speak new words for home. Thank you. We've got Magpies, Alison Balsites, Mark Seeger, Jay Mary, Ian Crutchley. Sorry, I almost said Scott. Scott Smallwood, and Genoa Anderson. I'm Shima Robinson, aka Dwennimmem. Thank you so much for coming. What a lovely time. And hopefully we'll see you at the next show.